Immediately, it says, he got into the boat with his disciples and came to the region of Dalmanutha. Now, we're not 100% sure where Dalmanutha is. In Matthew's account of this, he labels this place as Magadan, or some versions say Magdala. We believe it's on, again, the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee, near where Jesus has done a lot of his previous work, and that's what's shown on the map there. But he travels by boat with his disciples over to this place. And it says in Mark chapter 8 then, in verse 11, that the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. This is really an incredible sort of thing, that they would come seeking a sign. Perhaps they hadn't been around for the, no doubt, hundreds of miracles that Jesus has already performed. Maybe they hadn't seen them and had just heard tell of them. It's hard to say. But why they would be demanding a sign in light of the fact that Jesus had already performed so many signs all around the Sea of Galilee and in other areas. So Jesus doesn't take their request to be genuine. A lot of times when somebody asks him to do a sign or heal them or that sort of thing, if they have a genuine request, most all of the time Jesus is going to do what they're asking him to do to demonstrate that he is God's Son. But here he apparently believes that to be fruitless. For he says in verse 8, it says that he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation." When he says that, he's in essence saying, look, if all you're wanting to see is miracles and things like that and not believe in what the miracles are saying, if you don't understand the meaning of the sign, it's fruitless to show you a sign. Matthew's account of this gives us a little more information. In Matthew 16 and verse 3, Jesus says in Matthew's account that no sign would be given to that generation because they couldn't understand the signs anyway. They could see the signs as far as the weather is concerned. You know, if the sky was a certain color at sunset, they'd know the weather was this tomorrow. If it was red in the morning, they'd know, there'd be a storm coming. But they couldn't understand or perceive or see what the signs that Jesus was doing meant. They couldn't understand the signs of the times. And so here again we see some defective spiritual vision. These people couldn't see what should have been obvious to them. So Jesus says, "I will not give you another sign." Jesus then, after that, telling them that no sign would be given, leaves them and departs in a boat to go to the other side of the sea. He left them, getting into a boat, departing to the other side, it says in Mark chapter 8 and verse 13. They get in the boat, they're traveling to the other side, and it says that the disciples had forgotten to take bread. They did not have more than one loaf with them in the boat. So you can imagine, as is pictured on our screen, being in a boat, crossing the Sea of Galilee. You're going to be gone for a little while, and you're going to want something to eat. The disciples hadn't planned, hadn't had time maybe to get whatever it was. They neglected to get even just as much as one loaf of bread to take with them. And so they're worried about that, not taking care of something so, simple as that. And apparently about that time, Jesus charged them saying, "Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." Of course, leaven, something that you use in the making of bread. So naturally, the disciples' thoughts go to bread. And they wonder if Jesus is talking about this because they have forgotten to bring any bread. It says in verse 15, after he charged them, "Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod," they reason among themselves, saying, "It is because we have no bread." So their minds are on earthly things. They're thinking about their stomachs really more than what Jesus is saying and focusing on that. And Jesus obviously becomes aware of what they're saying, or is aware of what they're saying. He says, "Why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened?" Again, he's saying to the disciples, you're not seeing things correctly here. You're discernment, your spiritual understanding is lacking. You need to see things more clearly with a better spiritual focus. Don't you perceive or understand? Having eyes, do you not see? He asked them in verse 18. Having ears, do you not hear? Do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said 12. Also, when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said 7. So he said to them, how is it that you do not understand? Jesus doesn't really need them to bring along bread. He needs them, or wants them at least, to pay attention to what he's trying to teach them about, what he's trying to warn them about on this particular occasion. Matthew 16 and verse 13 in the parallel account in the Gospel of Matthew at this point indicates that eventually the disciples understood, and I quote, that he did not tell them to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. The Sadducees were aligned somewhat with Herod, would have been somewhat supportive of Herod, as were the Herodians. And so Mark's account says, beware of the Pharisees and Herod, and Matthew's account says the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Jesus may well have said, no doubt did all of that, said all of that. But the point is that Jesus was trying to warn them about false teaching that could destroy their souls, like eating bad food could destroy a person's body. And they're thinking about whether or not they have enough to eat for lunch. Jesus wants them to correct their eyesight. Their perception needs to be on a higher plane. How many times are we like this, where we're focused on very simple things, earthly things, what the next meal will be, what we're going to do with our time at work, at play, at home, especially in this time of the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders. We're focused on a lot of earthly things. We need to be much more focused on spiritual things and seeing with spiritual sight.